Welcome back, and today we're talking about business financing, specifically using a U.S. Small Business Administration or SBA loan through one of your local banks. My name is Thomas Rockwood, and if you have any questions about bank financing or SBA financing specifically, please feel free to reach out to me anytime at thomas@LifeForth.com. Today, I wanted to specifically talk to you about cash injection. A lot of questions come up around cash injection and how much cash one bank is requiring over another, or what is that appropriate amount, or what do you need to get your project off the ground, specifically around business acquisitions or startups. When you get into real estate transactions, there's a couple different loan programs you have access to, and that's a little bit different scenario. But if you're looking at a business acquisition or trying to start your business, there's a lot of variety in what you're going to see bank to bank. Remember, it's important to distinguish between what regulation, what the SBA dictates and says this is what's required, versus the bank's appetite to say this is the type of transaction that we feel comfortable doing. So you have two factors you're working with. Is it eligible? And then is it the bank's appetite to do it? So specifically around cash injection, we're going to use an easy number for easy math. If we have a $500,000 project, you want to either acquire a business for $500,000 total project, or you're trying to do a startup and your startup costs are projected to be around $500,000. Most banks aren't going to see 100% financing as a viable, lendable solution. I won't say all banks, but I'm going to say most banks. And I think what I've seen at the SBA is that they don't want to see 100% finance deals. I think there's importance in skin in the game. I think most lenders would agree with me on that, is what's your skin in the game. So when you approach a bank or a lender specifically about business financing, business acquisition financing or startup financing, you want to have some sort of skin in the game or cash injection that you're going to be putting in as well. I always start with 20%. Maybe you have more, maybe you have less, but it's important to say, okay, here's what I have. You don't want to put 100% of your cash into a project. If you're making a business acquisition, you want to have skin in the game, but you also want to have additional cash personally, that if the business needs it for whatever reason, you have additional cash to put into the business to support it. If you, as the owner of the business, have put in 100% and something happens and you need an additional couple $100s to fund some stuff and you don't have that, that's going to be a problem. So you want to have the right amount of cash to inject, as well as post-transaction liquidity personally to kind of say, hey, as an owner, I can back this, and if the business needs more cash, I have it. So if you start at 20% as a rule of thumb, I think you're heading down the right path. Some banks will do 15 or 10% depending on the strength of the business you're trying to buy or the strength of the franchise you're trying to start. And more isn't bad either. So if you've got a startup business that maybe doesn't have a franchise, it's highly speculative, you might see some banks saying, we want to see more cash injection. So the amount that you can borrow is really going to be based on bank to bank. But in a $500,000 project, if you brought $100,000 and were requesting a loan for $400,000, depending on what you're trying to do with those funds, how much equipment you're buying, or how much working capital is needed, or what you need to do to build out your space or to acquire the assets of the company, $400,000, and you're putting in $100,000, I think you've got appropriate skin in the game. Once you start getting below 10%, I think you're going to lose a lot of banks, especially in terms of a business acquisition when there's a strong change of ownership, or if it's a franchise that is maybe one of a newer franchise, they're the first location to get started in your market. So, as you're talking to your banks, keep that in mind. Look at how much you have to put into the project. And then you want to make sure that you have appropriate amount that kind of you're holding on to personally. You don't want to take yourself as a guarantor down to no strength or no liquidity afterwards. If you get turned down because of cash injection, I would say, look at that as you just don't have the right structure, ownership structure. A lot of entrepreneurs trying to start up their first business, a lot of them look to somebody else for financial support. Maybe that's a primary residence to put in as collateral, or it's actual cash capital to put into it, or it's a partner that has personal assets, cash that provides some strength into the ownership structure. Remember that if you go down that path, you're always, I won't say always, but it is eligible to do a partnership buyout later on once the business has the cash flow to support that. So if you need a partner or two to get your project started or make this acquisition, and later on down the road, if you want to be a sole owner and own it, I've seen businesses do partner buyouts and fund it through SBA loans as well. So that's an option to consider. So if you don't have the financials to pull off the loan request immediately, look to either family members or good business partners that might have the cash or the financial strength that gets your no to a yes on the bank appetite side. Again, if you have any questions about SBA lending or would like more information about your specific project and would like to chat with me about it, I'm happy to have that conversation. You can always reach me at thomas@lifeforth.com.